Welcome to Spooky Ass Shit. I am your host, Eric Dwinells, and tonight is kind of a first for the show. This is the first time I have an honest-to-goodness guest, not a guest co-host like I normally have, who's kind of there to talk with me or, you know, watch a movie with me or something like that, but an actual stranger who I'm meeting for the first time tonight. And I'm really excited to be here because we are recording this in his place of business in Salem, Massachusetts. We are at the newly reopened, less than a week?
Yeah, 6 days.
Yeah. Count Orlok's Nightmare Gallery. And I am here with the owner, James
Lergio.
Hold
for applause. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And right before, actually, as we were recording, I asked him again to remind me how to say his name, and it just slipped right out of my head. So
it's not a common one.
James Lergio. Well, mine's not either. Dwinells is a pain in the ass for people. So, all right. Now, as longtime listeners know, I am the one and only licensed Witchfinder General of Salem, Massachusetts.
It's a hard license to get, I would imagine.
It is. I got it right here.
Nice.
And I street perform out here on Essex Street, where the new Nightmare Gallery is located. So many tourists will come up to me and ask me, you know, what can I do? I'm really into the witch history. What can I do? And I say, good luck, because you're going to get the same story from, half a dozen museums around town?
Yeah.
And some are slightly better than others, but for the most part, none of them are great. The Witch Museum has not updated itself. I don't know when the last time they did was.
Since the beginning.
Yeah.
They might have changed a little bit.
The diorama section definitely has not changed in at least 30 years.
Yeah.
The little tour they do
at
after.
Least.
And the thing is, I love Salem, and I want these things to be great. And most of them are not. So when the tourists come to me and they see my performance and they say, "Oh, good show, that was really cool. Hey, what else can we do while we're in town? What do you recommend?" And I say, "Well, just go to whichever witch museum has the shortest line and see that." And I say basically the experience of going to a witch museum in Salem is this. You'll walk in the door, a teenager from Salem State University will charge you $8 to $15 to look at some broken mannequins. And that really is, and I'm sorry to say that, because again, I want these museums to be good. There's so much about Salem that is good. If you come in October, it's basically a party all month long. And if you're a Halloween fanatic like I am, it's wonderful. Mm-hmm. But it is a tourist trap, you know. But there's one thing that I tell people, it's not a witch thing, but if you just want something fun to do in Salem, especially if it's Halloween time and you're looking for something spooky, you've got to check out Count Orlok's Nightmare Gallery. And that was before they even had the new location. So now you're in the new location, which is much bigger.
Yeah, 217 Essex Street.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Very fancy looking.
Thank you.
A former bank.
Right.
You still got the vault.
It's still got it. Still got it. Won't go anywhere. It's very heavy.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to get into the details of the museum and everything in a little bit. But again, I will say, if you're planning to come to Salem, this is a place you want to check out, and that's why I've been bugging James for quite a while, actually, to come on the podcast, and I'm glad we were finally able to make that happen. Before we really get into anything, I do want to point you to the show's website, which is spookyas.com or spookyasshit.com. They both take you to the same place, and that is the show's blog page. From there, you will find each and every episode, even the ones that are no longer available on iTunes, and you can find pictures, outtakes, sometimes YouTube videos, things associated with each episode, and you can also find links to our social media. We are at Spooky Ass Shit on both Twitter and Instagram, and you can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/spookyas.
My website is nightmaregallery.com and needs to be updated. There's a lot of things that we've been going through for the last 8 months, and so we are getting to it in the middle of this month for a complete rehaul, or overhaul, I should say, of the website. So it's nightmaregallery.com, but we also have a Facebook page and an Instagram and a Twitter, and Google is correct. All of our hours and address are correct on Google. So that's that.
All right. So if they Google search you, they can find you in all of those places.
Indeed.
All right. Very good. All right. So, James, before we even talk about the Nightmare Gallery, let's go all the way back.
Ooh.
Because I was looking through the Nightmare Gallery's Facebook page, and I can see, as I mentioned to you earlier, you're not just a horror profiteer who was like, hey, Salem, that's a good place. If I open something spooky, then people will come and I'll make a lot of money.
Well, yeah. I never really said that, but I understand. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, it happens frequently, I'll tell you that. So I was happy to see that, no, this guy is the real deal, and that's got to start somewhere. So take us all the way back, if you would.
So when I was a kid, I loved Halloween. Still do. I'm just a bigger kid now. And I was enthralled with costumes and characters and all of the things a monster kid loves. My family didn't love monsters or Halloween, so I really don't know where that comes from. I have a couple of theories, but that's a whole other thing. But I love to go trick-or-treating, and I would always pick different monster characters to do trick-or-treating. My parents encouraged it. And then one year I visited something called a home haunt. Do you know that term?
Yes, I do.
So this home haunt was...
It's like a haunted house in somebody's house.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And this was in someone's backyard and front yard and side yard. And he was in my my hometown of Jamestown, Rhode Island, which is like the Mayberry of Rhode Island. And this was something beyond my wildest dreams. This was creatures, spectacular creatures through this home haunt. Stuff I'd never seen and stuff I'm sure could have easily been set dressing in movies. And this was all in this guy's yard. I was fascinated by it. And I was about 10 or 11 years old, and I asked my parents shortly thereafter if I could call this person. And again, small town, my parents knew his parents, and they said, sure, absolutely. So I did. And he invited me over to his house. And I brought my older brother to make sure he wasn't a creep. But he was a creep, but the best kind of creep. And he was this wonderful guy, and we're still friends today. His name was David. And he showed me his collection, and he showed me how to be discerning, kind of took me under his wing, brought me to this local exceptional costume and makeup and mask store that was not too far away. And we became friends, and I started acting in his haunted house. And then before you know it, I did my own haunted house when I built up a small collection. And the haunted house continued and continued. And then I continued doing the haunted house. That's kind of how that started. But the haunted house, of course, grew into something else, which we'll explore, I imagine, later on. But that's kind of how it started. I just saved my allowance for monster heads. He was able to give me catalogs that day, but also names of people who could make cool stuff, and they lived in L.A. And I was 12, and I was fascinated. And it was really kind of an amazing way to kind of get indoctrinated into the whole world of monsters and that sort of thing. Movies came later. Movies were something that I didn't really discover horror movies until around that time, a little bit later. And that was through my brother. My older brother is 5.5 years older, and he, as a teenager, enjoyed horror movies, and so I would watch whatever he was watching. And so that came later. Love of movies came after love of monsters. Because at that point, there were a lot of monsters that were not from movies, that were being created by wildly creative people in the U.S. predominantly. That's where I was getting monsters. And but the monster heads developed eventually into movie monster heads, and here we are.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, that reminds me. I had a similar relationship with theater training. You can tell I got my elocution.
Yes.
Relationship with my oldest brother. Actually used to watch horror movies, and he's 12 years older than me. So I'd be 6 or whatever, and he'd be like, you can watch it, but if you start crying, like, don't blame me. Like, this is your fault. If you have a
Right.
nightmare, like, don't blame me. I distinctly remember watching Dream Warriors with him, and it did not scare me. It just was a little weird when I went to school the next day and I wrote a story about basically a Freddy ripoff, and the teacher was like, "What is this?
Well, you were inspired.
Why is this kid writing this?"
Yeah,
Yeah.
that happens. You know, when you're young and you watch horror movies, or you have dark imagery going through your head instead of, you know, unicorns and teddy bears, you start doing stuff at school that concerns your teachers. You know, I was in, I don't know, 4th or 5th grade, or maybe less, I don't know, but they did, all right, you know, everyone make some sort of, I think they wanted me to make a, you know, a screen print
Sure.
thing, and everyone had their sports or G.I. Joe or My Little Pony. It was the 80s.
Sure.
And I did the Angel of Death. Not even from a movie, just death itself. And
Which is probably worse that it's not from a movie, because the teacher would be like, "Oh, you did this on your own?"
right, just death, just death.
Great.
That's what. Okay, all right. And she was concerned, and I think she brought it up to my mother, and my mother said, "No, it's okay. He's just a weirdie." Yeah, yeah.
All right. So then let's talk about when you decided to. Well, first of all, how did you get to Salem?
So, in 2005, I had taken a few years off of doing spooky stuff. It was like two years off or so, 2, maybe 3, and 2004, I guess. And I attended the Spooky World auction in Berlin, Massachusetts. I guess that must have been around that same time.
Yeah. So just for the folks who don't know, I actually want to do a whole episode about Spooky World.
Ah, yes.
But Spooky World is, well, it kind of still is, but it's got nothing to do with the old Spooky World. But the Spooky World is an attraction that used to be Massachusetts based. It was in Berlin, and it was like basically just a haunted hayride, and they'd have some celebrities, and then it moved a bunch of times, and now it's in New Hampshire or something, but it's not really related to the old one. But they had like a wax museum and everything back in the old days. So
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It actually was really, really neat. It actually was done by a couple of guys. One of the guys really, really loved it. The other guy was just a money guy, and the guy who really loved it died, and the money guy sold everything at auction. And I attended the auction just for fun. I didn't have any money, but I thought, why not just go see if anything, I can get something for posterity, because I'm a collector, and that's what collectors do. And so I went, and I caught up with my old friend Ed Gannon, and Ed said that he was teaming up with another guy who I'd never met to make the second coming of Spooky World. And I thought, how interesting. And he says, it's not going to be called Spooky World, it's going to be called something else, but I want you to be involved. Would you like to be? Absolutely. He said, maybe you could do something with your monsters, and we can all make it happen. I said, great. So in 2005, I teamed up with them to make something that was called Howl-O-Scream Park, and they did it at the Boston Bayside Expo Center. It's an enormous space, and they were giving me my own space, and they were paying me, and they wanted me to set up monsters and be with them during the nights of operation. And I said, that's awesome. I will totally do that, because the collection was in mothballs at the time, not really literally, but I wasn't using much of it. It was just hanging around in my apartment and in storage or at my parents' house, kind of a bunch of different places. And they allowed me a good amount of space for about 20 characters, life-size characters from movies, and they called it the International Monster Museum. It was part of a package of they could, it was essentially the second coming of Spooky World, by a package that would get you into like 3 haunted houses at the Bayside, I think, at the time, plus the museum, plus there was this great outfit at the time that did huge pumpkins that would be carved, jack-o'-lanterns, jack-o'-lantern spooktacular, actually, it's coming to mind right now. I don't know who does it now, if they still do it, I don't know, but these great pumpkins were brought in. And anyway, so I set up the collection there, life-size figures or so, about 20, And that was in 2005. I did that this next year in '06 and '07. But by that time, between '06 and '07, the owner of that operation at the what was then called Spooky World, because he purchased the rights to call it Spooky World for a few years. I said, I want to put down roots somewhere, because the International Monster Museum was a pretty popular part of that park. And I don't know where to put down roots, but he's, I have a place in Salem. Why don't you come and visit? And I said, I could do that. And so I did do that. It was the Museum of Myths and Monsters down on Pickering Wharf. He had been there for about a decade or so, and he had a couple of business ventures in the area. He says, why don't you come and visit me, and I'll show you around Salem and show you the attraction. And I did, and his attraction looked cool. It was relatively simple. There was smaller, interesting things to look at the beginning in the first room, and then there was a little haunted house. And I said, this is so cool. He says, if I can do it, you can do it. I said, huh. What he was actually grooming me for was to be part of his combo ticket to be in Salem. He knew I had quality stuff, and he would like to get another quality attraction in Salem. Totally logical thing. And so that 2007 was my last year at the Bayside Expo. I kind of split my show between my opening on Derby Street and some at the Bayside Expo Center. I had a bunch of stuff. I said, why not just split it? Getting paid in both places. The first year, we looked at a bunch of locations, but this one location on Derby Street, 285 Derby Street, was big enough. I mean, it wasn't enormous, but at that point, I was coming from nothing. So I said, let's just start here, and if it grows, great. And it was this kind of black box theater experience. I thought, I'll dress up the first 2 rooms if I can, and then the rest of it will be outfitted eventually. And that's exactly what happened. And so I was there for 10 years. Opened in '07, didn't make a whole lot of money, and then people would come to the front and say, are you a haunted house? We'd say no, and they'd say thank you very much, and then leave. And so our first year was almost our last year, because people in October want to see something more than a monster museum. Even now, it's a concept that is not very well known or grasped. And so we became a haunted house the next year, and we continued. And so that's why Salem.
All right. Now, of course, if anyone's familiar with Salem at Halloween time, it's a madhouse. The whole month of October, they do haunted happenings. Like I said, it's basically a party. There's usually street festivals on the weekend, some kind of thing going on each weekend. And especially as it gets later in the month, you can't even see the sidewalk. It's just people. But what about the rest of the year? Because I know you were open for 9 months, I think you said.
Yeah.
And I know that most businesses even the museums and everything, are open most of the year. Mm-hmm. So how does that work out for you? How can you? I mean, there's people out there today, but not a ton.
Right. Well, in August, it's the busiest month next to October. The summer has this slow incline, and then August is crazy. September is a bit of a break, and then October is nuts. The rest of the year is okay. I mean, honestly, it's different with every business, but we have found that it's worth it to open in March, because a lot of the other attractions are not open. Like some of the smaller witch attractions aren't open. Some attractions just open in October. So being open in March, we are one of the few places that are open. Although, now that I think about it, there's a lot of places that started opening earlier and earlier.
Yeah, I think through the summer, most of the witch museums and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they're all open in the summer.
Yeah. And all the gift shops, like spring. Everything.
Yeah. Late spring, summer, they're all open. And our hours are gradually going from, just the weekends, and then we add a few days during the week, and then, we're only closed on Wednesdays, then we're open every day, which we are right now. That's kind of how it is. Is it busy all the time? No. You live through it.
You're going to do fine.
I'm not worried at all.
This is a great location. You're in a prime location for October.
Mm-hmm.
You always had lines around the block in October at your old location, which was just a couple blocks away, but it kind of a world away as far as where the touristy stuff is.
Right. When we're open, I say, come to Salem and experience the museum, and they want to come in October. When's the best time to come? I say during the week in the first 2 weeks. Why? Because no matter what I say, people will come in the last Saturday of October. And the last Saturday of October is the busiest day of the year. And it doesn't matter what I say. I'm saying this to whoever is listening right now. And they will say, you might have some very smart listeners, so they might say, okay, don't go that day. But I make an announcement on Facebook and say, here's what you need to know about October in Salem. And I imagine some people think it's very counterintuitive to say don't come to Salem in October. But I say this because it doesn't matter what I say. People will come either way. It's not going to
hurt the numbers. Yeah. I always tell people come before Columbus Day.
Yes.
Because then if you come in, that's basically the first 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And if you come during that time, you still get the nice New England fall. Mm-hmm. You get that nice smell in the air, that brisk wind, hopefully. And everything's still open, and even the haunted happenings have started a little bit. Right. So you still get the good flavor of it. But some people just want the full experience of waiting in lines for hours and the more, it's almost Halloween and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I totally get that, and I understand.
I think everybody, if you're into Halloween, do that once in your life, and then come back for a proper visit in July or something.
Because when we're busy, you might not get to do exactly what you want here. We are the only place in the city, as far as I know, that changes from one thing into a completely different thing. And we take a little time to do that. At the old location, we would take anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. We would close for that time. And we would close at, like on a Saturday, we would close at 2 o'clock. People were so confused about that. I'm like, it's because we're going from a museum into a haunted house. The lighting is different. We've got actors. Everything needs to get set up. There's a lot of stuff that goes with it. And we would open back up at 3. Eventually, people kind of got the idea. But people would arrive sometimes, and the biggest, loudest complaints would come from people who didn't understand and didn't read all of the things we put out there, saying, if you want to see the museum on Saturday, this particular Saturday, do not be there anytime after 2 o'clock. And they would say, well, it doesn't matter when I arrive. I want to see it. And I'm like, well, it does,
Yeah.
Can I see the museum when it's a haunted house time? Nope. No, it's just not. It's not lit for that. It is, and you're going to want to see and read the placards, and we're trying to scare you. Just come back during a different time.
Sure. Yeah, I think that because I was looking at your reviews, they're overwhelmingly positive, by the way.
Right. Which
but
is
the
great.
couple that you mentioned. The couple that I saw that were 1 star on TripAdvisor or whatever, that's exactly what the situation was. They were referencing not the museum but the haunted house, which personally I've never been to. I haven't been to your haunted house, so I can't speak to that specifically.
They're usually not haunted house people.
Yeah, well, but I can definitely tell they're not talking about the museum, because even in the old museum the lighting was fine and you could see everything and read everything. But I just got the tour of the new museum, and I can tell you guys the signs light up. So you're going to be able to read those, and you can see the figures clear as day. It's beautiful in here. So
thank you.
You put a lot of hard work into it, and you could tell.
I did. Yeah, it was fun. And in terms of the reviews, every review there is of the old location. So this is a completely different beast.
Yeah. Although if you go on the Facebook, there are some people that have already posted reviews on Facebook.
5 star.
5 stars.
Which is great.
I was reading some of them.
Isn't it funny? I found that out years ago when we were doing Facebook, that people can post something less than a 5-star review on your own Facebook page. I just think that that's so unfair.
Yeah.
We've had some really, in 10 years, we've had some really ridiculous reviews. As you say, they're mostly very good. But occasionally someone's just pissed off over something, just couldn't please them even if they enjoyed the program. and 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 I always think it's so funny. Like I can't even get rid of this awful, stupid review of this person who just didn't like anything, you know. But anyway, that's just me.
It's not just you. That's anybody who puts themselves out there in the world these days. Even this podcast. If you go on iTunes, overwhelmingly positive reviews.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have a ton yet, but
Sure.
what we got, overwhelmingly positive. And then there's one or two, and I read them, and I'm just like, you listened to an episode that you didn't like.
Right.
You gave it one shot, which I guess is all people are going to do in this day and age.
Everyone's a critic.
Sometimes things take. If I listen to a podcast, I never give a review after the first episode, no matter how bad I think it is, because I'm like, I'll give it another shot maybe, or I just won't listen to it and I won't review it. Right. It's not for me.
And most people who give reviews are compelled to give a bad review if they feel if they don't like it. That's why it's so important to remember the good reviews, because if you go into a place and you enjoy it, you are not compelled. A lot of people, I should say, most people are not compelled to give a good review. They're just compelled to give a bad review if they really didn't like it. They're like, oh, well, then I'm gonna, trash this guy on wherever, So it's good when there are good reviews. That's always a good thing.
So you are going to continue doing the haunted house?
Yes. Yes, we will. We're gonna. So I did the haunted house because people really are looking for something other than the museum in October. I mean, they're looking for the museum, but they're also looking to get scared. So we like to provide both things. The service that the haunted house does, though, is, besides scaring people, is it provides a kind of a way for me to step away from it for a moment and stop worrying, because and it's funny to think about this, but the museum is well protected, well guarded. We have cameras, etc., and my collection, I believe, is in good hands when my staff is here. We have way more staff when we have a haunted house, though, and all of my actors are not only good at acting, but they're also good at protecting my collection. So I don't really have to worry about it as much. And you might think, oh, you would have to worry about it more. No, I really don't. If we have everything set up correctly and we scare people in the right direction and so on and so forth, I breathe a sigh of relief. And that's kind of, yes. To answer your question, we will be doing the haunted house. It will be limited hours on the weekend, in the evenings, but that's what we're going to continue to do, at least for now.
Speaking of the reviews, even the positive reviews, there's one thing that people mention over and over again as either a major or a minor criticism. Do you know what I'm going to say?
Size?
No.
Oh, no.
Pictures.
Oh, of course, yes.
And to be honest, I do agree with this criticism, and I'll explain myself in a minute, but why don't you explain, you do have a no picture policy here.
Yes.
Okay, so what is the reasoning behind this?
It's mostly so we can ruin people's vacations. No, that's not true. It's just an added bonus. When we opened at the Bayside Expo Center, the two rules were fairly simple. No photos and do not touch. These are practical rules. Do not touch, of course, because what we're looking at is artwork. It is not done by a kid in an assembly line. It's stuff that I look at and I have collected and I love it, and they're my children, essentially. And if you touch something enough, it will go away. It will be ruined forever. And you can't get it back. You can get it restored, but it will never be the same. And getting restored takes a lot of money. So that's the no touching. The other rule is no photography. But James, why don't you allow people to take pictures of this stuff? It's so cool. It would be advertising. Okay, so here's what's wrong with that. People take shitty photos. When you take an average person with an average cell phone, meaning not a photographer with a great camera, they will take a photo that is blurry, or they'll take a photo with the flash on. And let's say that happens. Let's say I just allow photography. So what you have is a bunch of shitty photos all over the internet of a cool museum. The flash undoes all of the lighting that we have so carefully put together, a photo could be highlighting the worst part of that display. I mean, every display is good and bad. I mean, they could be saying, "Look at this little area where there's dust. Can you imagine? There's dust here." Anyway, that's one of the reasons. The other is, if we allowed photography, there would be a complete photographic inventory of the entire museum on the internet somewhere. You know, someone would make a page.
Sure.
And what we're doing is we're selling an experience here. We're not selling a scrapbook. We're selling an experience. We want people to come in and be face to face with the monsters. They're often fans. They're fans of these movies, and I want them to enjoy the collection as fans. Photos are a distraction. Taking photos are a distraction. Flashes are distracting. And flashes actually, over time, affect the pigments of some of the paintwork.
You know, you always hear that on tours of everything ever. There was like no flash photography.
Yeah.
You always wonder why. So that's really true, huh?
Yeah, it is. If anything in my collection has been affected by light, it's been painted again. But it is a thing. But you can't tell someone no flash photography, because they'll take a photo and, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know the flash was on." I mean, it's just, and then there's the story about this one day in 2008 or 9. I said, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to try an experiment. I will allow people to take photos at the very end of the museum." And that day, I told people where it was okay to take a photo. And it was at the very end. You will find a mausoleum. There are 4 characters in front of that mausoleum. You are allowed to take a photo right there and nowhere else, okay? And that was part of the rules that I told every single living person that came in, and the dead ones. And I went back to see, what's the old expression? Give them an inch, they will take a arm of a character and place it around them while taking a selfie. That's not the expression, but I added that last part.
Sure.
So I found people manhandling my expensive and beloved monsters, and it was a moment of realization and horror, that you just, I love the living public and the dead ones. And I love tourists, and I love the people who keep me in business and insane. And but I also know that you have to give parameters,
sure,
and boundaries, because they don't have them themselves.
Well, I have to say, I think you just laid out a pretty good case. You've even turned me around, because I was like, "Dude, this is the age of Instagram. Of course you want people taking pictures."
I know, it's really hard.
Of course, but because I was just thinking, the obvious thought is just that you don't want people posting your whole collection, like you said, and kind of ruining the mystery of the experience, but that's true too. Yeah. You got to think of the figures themselves too.
Yeah, I mean, it is very easy to go into a museum and take photos these days, but there are still a lot of museums that don't allow photography, and people, it's hard for people to accept. And even as we were reopening, I said it's going to be so hard for people to accept this rule again. The old place was pretty photogenic, but this has a lot of great corners and cool characters and stuff, and people will want to take photos. And we're just thinking about it. I'm like, how are we going to enforce this? We just hope that people have the kind of respect for our rules, and not take photos. I have had, in day 6, a couple of experiences where I've had to tell people, don't take photos. I've had to remind them. I hate reminding them. I hate policing people. It's the worst part of my job. And people say, "Oh, it's the worst part of your job." Seriously, I would rather just trust that they, this is a business, but this is like my home. I don't live here, but if I had a home that was also a Hall of Monsters, this is what it would look like. And if you invite people into your home and you just say, enjoy yourself, but just, don't take any photos, please. And please don't touch the works of art. And they violate your rules. Those 2 very simple rules. Might be hard to follow, but they violate them. It bugs me, So, but you know what? We've had this issue for 10 years, and we just try and deal with it the best we can. We hope and we understand the instinct to take a photo. This is a selfie nation, and the characters are cool looking, and I'm just happy when people do completely say, it was really hard for me not to take a photo, but I didn't, and I'm like, that's awesome, and thank you, and come again. There's always going to be a need to take a photo here. People will really, it's going to be hard, but them's the rules.
Well, even from where I sit, I mean, Elvira is just over your shoulder.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I can see the creature from the Black Lagoon. And we're in the lobby area right now.
Right.
Where you are allowed to take pictures.
Yes.
So
I give them that.
Yes.
I brought the creature from the Black Lagoon into the gift shop, and I said, there's no way we can't allow photos in the gift shop. It would just be, cruel. And so we do allow people to take photos with him. Will they touch him too? Yeah. So I got to get on that. There's several signs that need to be made. I don't want to scrawl them out on loose leaf paper. They got to go to a printer and all that, blah. And Elvira landed here too, and I'm like, I can't say no because people can see her from the outside.
Sure.
What am I going to do? So. Yeah,
and if I remember correctly, did you used to put the Winifred from Hocus Pocus outside?
I did one year.
Okay.
Last year that Chad was with me, who made the character. He put her outside for photos.
I was going to say, because that was like a nice little bone you threw to people.
Right.
To do that.
I won't do that again.
No? Didn't work out so well?
No, I don't want to move my stuff around.
So, yeah. No. Well, all right. So just settle for what's in the lobby. But that's what I wanted to mention earlier. So when we talk about the figures, it's not a wax museum.
No.
Because they're not made of wax, any of them? Or
no, they're made out of materials that people use in film and television, so latex, silicone, resin, that sort of thing. But we say it's like a wax museum because people will understand the concept. Yeah. Oh, they don't move because wax museums don't have figures that move. At least most of them don't.
Right.
So that's what we say.
Yeah, because that's kind of how I've described it to people too. I'm like, it's kind of like a monster wax museum. They're not really
wax museum for horror fans.
Yeah.
And when the technical question of what exactly are they made from, then we explain it, but they get it.
Yeah. I think most people, it doesn't make that big a difference. They just want to see cool monsters.
Right.
And they'll definitely see that here.
Exactly.
So you have had some celebrities come in as guests just visiting the museum, and you also bring in some horror celebrities too. So what can we talk about that a little bit? Who's walked through not these doors, but
right. Yeah, that's the sad part. Yeah. They've all been here. Oh wait, not here, but they've been to the other location, which is really not as interesting sounding. In 2009, I was contacted by a guy who called himself the representative to Tony Moran, who played one of the people who wore the Michael Myers costume in the first movie.
The unmasked Michael Myers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And who's turned into a good friend, really nice guy. And he said, would you be interested in having him at your place? And I'm like, yeah, we've never done that before, but yeah, sure. And that year we had him. Now the museum that we had before was like 2,200 square feet on a good day. And so we had Tony at the very end. We removed a couple of zombies and we put them in a mausoleum area. That was the biggest bottleneck we could have ever had. And so I said, let's do it differently the next year. And then we had him outside in a tent at the exit. You couldn't get to him unless you went through the museum. And since then we've done that, and it worked out pretty well. We've had Tony Moran. We have had
Kane Hodder.
Yes,
he's come to everything. So
Kane Hodder is another friend who loves Salem and loves his fans and is so easygoing and really, really fun to have. He's a jokester and fun.
I saw in the pictures Doug Bradley. Was he here signing stuff or just as a visitor?
No, Doug Bradley was here for a weekend back in 2011. That's right. And so was Bill. Oh, man. It's one of those days where I can't call up.
That's all right. They can go on the
all.
Facebook page.
Yeah.
And see. There's Kirk Hammett was here, I assume, last year.
Yeah, Kirk Hammett was here last year, and he was not a guest of ours. The Pewdie Essex Museum had him as a exhibitor.
Yeah, it was a really cool exhibit.
Several months. It was beautiful. He has an amazing collection. And when they first were getting ready to produce the publicity for that show, they reached out to me, which is great. And I think it definitely was like their first foray into the horror world. So they were like, what do we do? Oh, there's a horror museum in town. Let's talk to him. And they said, would you promote this with your audience? Not like they needed my help. They have a lot of $14 million operating budget. But I'm sure they thought it would help to reach out to my horror-loving audience to promote the show. So I said, absolutely. I said, but I want a visit from him. And they said, well, we'll do our best. I said, please, just do it. I didn't say it in those words. That would be rude.
Right.
But I'm like, come on.
I mean, it doesn't seem like something he wouldn't enjoy anyway.
It's not a reach. I mean, he's a collector, and I'm a collector, and so that's what we had in common. And the first time I met him was at the big introduction in the atrium over there, and he's like, I have a horror museum in town, and he says, you do? I said, yes, you have to come and see it. You will have so much fun. And he says, I will. And then someone who was totally bending his ear continued to talk to him about nonsense. And I said, okay, that was it. And I talked to the curator over there, and I said, listen, I said something. I said, could you just kind of, next time he's in town, could you bring him? And eventually that happened. So he came when they wanted the museum closed down, and I said, absolutely. And he came with his entourage, and he was a super nice guy. And we got to chat about monsters, collecting, and some of the stuff that I enjoyed of his collection. And he had a great time. He signed some stuff for me, and that was it. But that was the one time he was at the museum, the old location. And Rob Zombie's been as well. Another super nice guy, monster kid. We talked about monsters. He was a fun person to have in the museum. He was there in 2011, which is kind of a big year. We had 4 celebrities in 4 weekends of October, and then Rob Zombie during that September. He just wandered in one day. He was doing location scouting for Lords of Salem, which was filmed in Salem. All the exteriors were done in Salem. And he enjoyed the collection, and then he tweeted about it, which was totally unexpected and really, really nice of him. And he had like 450,000 followers that heard about Nightmare Gallery that day. He ended up coming in a second time as well, which was really cool. And I just thought, he brought some of the actors from the movie and some of the crew as well that second time. Dee Wallace has been here as well. She was just did a night a few years ago. Super sweet. I love Dee. And we've had others as well.
Yeah. And you have guests coming. I know you have a couple lined up for this October already.
Yes. And since it was our first year and a new location, I wanted to go with a couple of guys I knew well, and who were very easy to be around. And so Kane Hodder is going to be our first weekend.
Kane Hodder, just for anyone who doesn't know, is most known for playing the role of Jason multiple times, I believe in part 6 through part 10?
7.
7 through 10.
Yep. And then and it was also Victor Crowley in Hatchet, and he's a stunt man that's done a lot of acting in other shows as well.
I spotted him in, what was I watching? Monster, the Eileen Wuornos movie.
Yes.
He's like one of the undercover cops that arrests
yes.
What's her name when she's Eileen.
I spotted them in a couple of movies too, including Frozen. Have you seen that? Not the animated movie from Disney, but there was another movie that came out. Adam Green directed it. It is very underrated. It's very good.
I'll check it out.
But my first encounter with Kane, we were walking through the museum, and he says, "Hey, that's from House 2," and I said, "Yes." Now, House 2 is from the '80s. It's one of my favorite horror movie sequels of the '80s. And he's like, "I was in that movie." I said, "You were not." He says, "Yeah, I sat in," he said, "for Royal Dano, who was the Gramps character." Do you remember this movie from '87?
I haven't seen that one, no.
I highly recommend it. It's just fun, right? It's there's horror, there's comedy, it's good. And he says, "I sat in for Royal Dano, who was the Gramps character, in the casket because they wanted to put this dusty Fuller's Earth is what it's called on his character for when he got up. This dust rises, that sort of thing, and it's very toxic, and Royal Dano didn't want to do it, and I said, "Sure, I'll do it." I was doing stunt work for that movie anyway, and yeah, I saw him and I'm like, "Oh my God, you're in one of my favorite movies, and you're in one of my favorite movies," because I love Part 7, Friday the 13th.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's when he started doing his run as Jason, which I think is a pretty quintessential Jason character.
Yeah. And you also have Tony Moran coming
yes.
back?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Another
big deal,
great guy.
40th anniversary year.
Yes. Yeah.
Of Halloween.
And he's another great guy. He's fun to be with. And he's going to be here during one of the busiest weekends. So that should make things very interesting.
I'll probably be too busy working, but I met him a long time ago at Rock and Shock or Chiller, one of those, and had him sign a mask. But I was too young to know how to really take care of him because I had it signed by him and Nick Castle.
Oh.
And now it's melted into it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well.
It was one of the cheapy masks too.
That happens.
But I still hold on to it though, even though it's all
Can you see the
together.
signatures?
I don't think you can see his anymore. I've been too afraid to really try to lift it out of the box that it's in. But yeah, he comes around. But the Nick Castle losing that one hurt.
Well, he's still alive.
Yeah, maybe I'll write to him and see.
And he's still appearing at conventions, as far as I know.
I haven't seen him around here. But anyway, so we were talking earlier. We didn't really get into it, but you mentioned that living here or working here in Salem and having a place here, you've run into some characters.
Sure.
Not celebrities, but just regular, everyday citizenry weirdos.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So any that stick out in your mind in particular?
Well,
takes all types here in Salem.
It does take all types, and I'm all for all types. But Salem is a city. I mean, people don't realize. They sometimes, like, a popular misconception among, I'll probably say youth, about Salem is that it's still, a village with thatched roofs. I mean, one friend of mine was very funny. She said, "I thought Salem was like a theme park." And then I come and it's in a city. So people have all kinds of weird ideas of what Salem is. Yeah. It's not thatched roofs. It's not a theme park. It is a city that has a history.
Yeah.
And the buildings aren't extraordinarily tall, but it's still very much a city. We have everyone that you would expect to be in a city. And we have a homeless population that panhandles. We have the wealthy folks who live around the common. We have everybody. We also have a lot of characters. Characters are drawn to Salem like a beacon, like a moth to a flame, as they say. People who you might not encounter anywhere else. People who are delusional. People who are sadly off their meds. People who are totally on their meds and still very unique. And we get a good amount of them. We did get a good amount of them on Derby Street. In fact, probably one of the strangest things that happened to us just before we left is a man passed away at our exit. We have an entrance and an exit, the stairs, and I come around the corner and there's a couple of people gathered along with my assistant, and I looked at him, my assistant Cliff, and I looked at this guy, and it was like a what's going on?" And he just kind of, with a sour look, and just looked at me and nodded. Oh, no good. And I'm like, "Oh my God." So we established that this man was no longer breathing, was probably deceased. I don't know exactly what happened. I probably should have called to follow up, just out of curiosity. But they were working on him. They didn't cart him off in a hearse.
Say that he lived happily ever after as soon as he got to the hospital and the doctors fixed him up.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine. But we do have a lot of characters. They don't all die here, but they do make the Salem atmosphere unique. We also have street preachers. People sometimes, if they come to Salem, if they've been to Salem more than a few times, they probably have seen them during October. I didn't really have that much of that down on Essex Street, but
you will now.
I know.
You mean on Derby Street, but now you're on Essex
Street.
Right,
Right, on Derby Street. And the street preachers are a scourge of the earth. They come and spew hate and nonsense, and they're the most confused group of assholes I've ever known. Can I say that?
Yeah.
And yeah, they just kind of pollute the environment with silliness.
So one of the, again, Salem takes all types, and one of the nice things about that, because these aren't just like people who are concerned for your soul, and they very nicely say, you know, Jesus loves you and he wants you to go to church and look into your heart and blah, blah, blah. They're screaming at you, and, you know, just the fact that you're even in this city means you're going to hell.
They don't care about your soul.
Yeah. But again, Salem takes all types, and that includes Satanists. And there is a satanic temple freshly built here in the city.
Some of the nicest people.
And they do counter preaching.
Yeah.
They're much quieter, but they'll come and stand in front of the, you know, hellfire and brimstone yelling guys. And especially during the busy times, those street preachers don't actually usually last too long in one spot. And if I'm here in character, I'll go up to them too, and I'll yell at them because they're not strict enough for my character. I'm a fucking Puritan, you know? So I'll be like, look at your outfit. Like, what is this? Because this is not godly. And
blended cotton with what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think that's great. I personally, I don't have the brakes. One needs brakes when you're talking to these people. Yeah. You pump the brakes a little bit, because otherwise you're going to do something that will probably land you in jail.
Oh, well, so they wear cameras.
Yeah. Oh, do they? Yeah.
And they purposely try to get you to hit them or something like that.
That's an insidious thing to do.
I never do. I either joke around like I just said, or I'll just be like to the crowd, be like, do you guys want to put your friend on trial for being a witch instead of listening to this? Because that's what I do. And then I'll take them and I'll put them on my block and I'll ring my bell and announce that we're having a witch trial.
I mean, I just don't know what exactly I'm going to do if I see them out here. I will probably see them out here, and I will try to remain calm and restrained and ignore them, but it is going to be very difficult. My big problem is the fact that free speech also means free hate.
Sure.
And free hate is these awful people coming and just ruining the moment that visitors from all over the world are trying to have. It is the most selfish, anti social thing I could ever imagine a person could think of. And it really is insidious that they wear cameras and try and get people to hit them. Mm-hmm. Because that just shows you that the stupid stuff that they're saying, they don't even believe it themselves.
Yeah.
So it's very sad. It's very, very sad. And I wish there was some sort of ordinance to protect folks who are trying to have a good time from folks like that. Like there should be an area that they have to go where no one is.
Well, and the other thing is, I have to get licensed to be a street performer.
Yeah.
And I know that they're, protected under free speech and all that. But still, I can't just set up anywhere I want.
No, and they're not licensed. They're not licensed. And they actually bring megaphones. They don't just start yelling. They bring megaphones, and they're not the small kind either. They have like a whole dolly full of speakers.
Street performers have to follow a sound ordinance.
Yeah.
And like there's certain areas where you're not allowed to be, so loud or whatever. I'm fine because I don't use any amplification. But
right.
there's, if you're playing guitar or something, you can't just go and sit in front of the coffee shop or something like that. So, yeah.
They really get my blood pressure high.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So they get shut down pretty quick when it's really busy. It's the slower nights. Sometimes I come the week after Halloween too, because there's still, some stragglers and everything.
It's so depressing after Halloween.
Yeah, it really is.
Everyone just leaves.
Yeah.
I had a friend come to Salem on November 1st this past year, and I got to show him the shell of the city. It was like the burnt out corpse of Salem. This is what happens after October 31st, and I was not planning on being in Salem that day. I'm never in Salem on November 1st, because it's depressing, and everyone leaves.
Yeah,
everyone's gone. Especially down on Derby Street. I really don't know about Essex Street. We'll see. Well, the new museum is, I've been describing it as the older, more sophisticated sister to the first one. It's a cool place. It's much more airy and open. The other place got a little claustrophobic for some people. Some of us enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But it is, you come right in and everything's pretty open. We of course still have it sectioned off from museum to gift shop and lobby, etc. Because that's the way it looks best. But I think people really enjoy it, and I encourage anyone who enjoys horror movies to come and see it.
And I would agree with that sentiment. If you're in Salem, it's definitely one of the things you want to check out while you're here. And if you do come in October, actually, I start witch finding the last weekend of September.
Nice.
It's not super busy, but it just gives me a chance to get the rust off. So if you come anytime between the last weekend in September and the last weekend in October, you'll get at least 2 really good shows, because I'll be on the street, and then you can come to Count Orlok's. So, that's one thing I wanted to ask you. So how did you settle on the name?
So we had been, as a haunted house for many years, we had been Nightmare Gallery. Sometimes it was Nightmare Gallery at blankety blank. Like we were in 1999 through 2001, we were in Nightmare Gallery at Belcourt Castle in Newport, Rhode Island, which is a lot of fun, by the way. It was a big old 60-room mansion that I was actually working as a tour guide at the time. So from that time, we set up a website, nightmaregallery.com. So we knew we were going to be Nightmare Gallery, but I think, and I forget now exactly why, but I think I wanted it to be blankety blank Nightmare Gallery. Someone said, why don't you make it Night Gallery? I said, no, that was a show I didn't really particularly enjoy.
Yeah.
And
it was the lesser Rod Serling show.
Right. And they said, well, there's going to be a place in Salem called Nightmare Factory, so you should really think about changing it. I said, I really don't think I'm going to change everything I am because of this other business, which is a completely different thing, opening in Salem. So I said, all right, I will make it Count Orlok's Nightmare Gallery. That makes it different enough. Well, for the most part, it was different enough. I saw Nightmare Factory come and go. And we became Count Orlok's Nightmare Gallery. Count Orlok, of course, is from Nosferatu. It was mysterious sounding. It was unique, and it was public domain. So that's how it got picked.
That's how that particular name. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's the super not Dracula from Nosferatu.
Yeah. Well, Nosferatu, of course, Max Schreck, he really was a very interesting character. I often talk about Shadow of the Vampire, which was a fictitious story, but what a very interesting story it was,
Yeah.
Even not being real, but get to eat the people,
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, I feel like we might have just hit the tip of the iceberg, because we didn't even talk about our shared love of these movies and characters and everything. And so maybe someday we'll come and do that
another time.
Yeah, just even Nosferatu, just that scene, the shadow on the stairs, that
so
used to scare me. I had this game, VCR game, Doorways to Horror, when I was a kid, and it had clips from horror movies, and it had that one.
Wow.
And every time I'd be like, and now I watch it, and it's like, okay, it's not like terrifying, but it's still pretty creepy.
1922, it was terrifying. And people were terrified by completely different things back in those days.
But, well, even so, like when he comes out of the doorway or when he rises out of the coffin, those are still and just Count Orlok himself, he's a creepy looking dude.
He is. And in fact, we used to do, in the old location, we did a movie night every now and then. And one of the movies that we would show is Nosferatu. And I remember one of the times that we showed it, there was a group of tween boys that came in, and like one grandmother or something. And there was 4 of them. And I thought, oh my God, they're not going to be able to pay attention to this movie. It's a silent movie. It was made in 1922. It's got some creepy imagery, but these are boys that have other stuff in the brain. It's like they took a whole bunch of Adderall and sat down, and they were laser focused on this movie. It was really interesting to see. And that proved to me that it holds up, even as an old movie. If you can get past the fact that it's a silent movie, it is a good one, and it really holds up even to the ones who are have attention elsewhere.
There you go. So it's an appropriate name for the museum then.
Yeah,
especially but being in public domain doesn't hurt either.
Right, I like to think so, and it's been a long time now, so. People call me Count Orlok, even though I don't look like the character. I don't think I do anyway.
Well, I'm sure you've seen him before. There is a guy. His real name is Steve.
Yeah,
on Essex
Vampire
Street.
Steve.
Yeah,
I know Steve.
He's more of a Salem's Lot vampire,
Yes.
but that vampire was clearly inspired by Count Orlok.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
Anyway,
absolutely.
All right, James. I won't monopolize any more of your time, but thank you so much for the tour of the new place and for being on the podcast.
My pleasure.
And like I said, maybe someday we'll have you back and we'll talk about movies and monsters that we love.
I'd like that.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you.
And for the rest of you listening, please come to Salem and visit us. Don't forget to check out Count Orlok's Facebook page. I'll throw up links to it and everything. And don't forget to look at my website, spookyas.com or spookyasshit.com. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/spookyas. Share the show. We need more spookaroos. That's what I call my listeners. And 5-star reviews on Apple Podcast would be wonderful. It really helps to keep the show going, to keep me enthused, to know that you guys are out there, you're listening, and that you're enjoying it. So, from Count Orlok's Nightmare Gallery on Essex Street in which city? Salem, Massachusetts. Don't be afraid.